What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, this is where we talk about the news topics that happened in the scale world of RC over the past week. If you enjoy the Scale News Update, hit the like button. Let's jump into this week's topics. The first new vehicle release for this week was the CEN KG1 edition of their Ford F450 Super Duty. This one is basically the same as the previous American Force version that was made, except it does have 10mm taller shocks to give it a little bit more lift, and then it has, of course, the KG1 version of the wheels. The wheels are a little bit different width, so it gives the tires a little bit different profile. But beyond that, most of the truck underneath is just like before, available in two new colors compared to the previous ones, and little differences like the bed now has a textured bed liner type appearance applied to it. So beyond that though, it's just another style to choose from if you liked the previous F450 bro-dozery type truck. If you're interested in more details about that truck, I actually received one early and did a video on it, so you can check that video for all of the information, or I'll link to where you can buy one in the description below. And the second new vehicle release for this week was a Axial Capra four-wheel steer edition. This kind of a truck that came out of nowhere, but this is pretty much the Axial Capra with four-wheel steering, just basically a front axle now put in the rear, except the fact that the cage is actually significantly different to be able to clear that new rear steer option. The cage had to be shortened up in total height in the rear, and then the rear bars on the cage were completely reshaped to make sure that it had clearance for the tires to steer. This also meant it's got a different size fuel cell. In order to do that, it was completely new molds for both sides of the chassis and probably a little bit of the bracing. So a significant effort to pull off that new version of the Capra. Now, I also received that one early and put out a video on that yesterday. So again, if you'd like to check out in-depth details as well as a bunch of driving footage of that truck, go check out that video. I'll link it below as well. But beyond that, the Capra, they did the DX3 radio and they did a 5-position rear steer setup on it, which is perfect. It's independent, it works well. It does use the regular S614 servos front and rear, which are nothing to write home about. They get the job done, and I actually took the Capra on a timed comp course and it did really, really well. I really enjoyed the truck overall, and it made me rethink my position on the Capra, which hasn't always been positive, but this one I really enjoyed and glad that I've got it. Looking forward to doing more with it here in the future. But if you've been holding off on a Capra, it's worth taking another look at. And yet another vehicle release to discuss, this time from Old Time RC. Old Time RC sponsored the Scale News Update for this month, but this is a new release that they've got coming that is something I've showed in some of the previous live videos. I had one of these, and this is a shrunken down 1/24 scale sand scorcher. Now, this is a pre-order situation, but this is a really cool little build. It's got sand scorcher-like suspension, both front and rear, as well as the body style that also mimics the 1/10 scale version. Comes with a little carbon fiber chassis and typical 1/24 scale electronics inside. I do believe that they're also going to have a roller version available. At the time of filming, that's not on the website, but I'm told that that actually should be coming fairly soon. The one that I had was a little pre-production unit, and I actually shipped that up to Matt at SBG to make himself a miniature version of his shippy build that he did this year in 10th scale. So you can check out the link in the description below to check out all the details on this little 1/24 scale sand scorcher-like build. And thanks again to Old Time RC for sponsoring the Scale News Update for this month. And the next new vehicle release for this week was from Cross RC with the DC8 Rhino 8x8. We've seen teasers of this thing coming for weeks or months already at this point, but they released a video of this thing doing its thing, running around in some sandy type terrain, pulling some objects, and overall just looks really good. We've seen their BC8 Mammoth in the past, but this one kind of upping the scale a little bit more. Now, this is labeled as a 1/12 scale, but it's modeled after a very large vehicle, so this is still a very large RC vehicle at that. Now, at this point, I did not see information on pricing and availability yet. The previous version that they had, the BC8 with their flagship model, which is the higher end, since a lot of times these are offered in multiple kind of finishes, was around $1,500. So I would expect that this one will either meet or exceed the pricing of that previous model. So if you're thinking about getting real serious about a new 8x8, then here's one that may check those boxes. But we won't know exactly until all the information is released. Once we see that information released, we'll come back and discuss. A collaboration project between Scale Garage Systems and Artful Dodgers has released this package of Element Night Runner parts. This includes a custom handmade aluminum and wood rear bed setup, as well as custom rear bumpers. Then there's also laser cut front TRD inspired skids, as well as the rock rail setup and some TRD inspired decals for the truck as well. And there's also a roof rack included with this. These are all powder coated in black, and the overall look of the truck obviously changes a lot by adding these parts. A completely different twist on the Night Runner. If you've never checked out Scale Garage Systems or Artful Dodgers, definitely worth a look. Both websites are listed in the description below. Scale Garage Systems makes some awesome rear beds for a number of different vehicles. Artful Dodgers has a number of laser cut and bent plate setups, and now they're starting to do some welded tube projects. Definitely two websites worth checking out. I've linked them as well as this specific product in the description below. Take a look. They both make some really interesting products. Holmes Hobbies is jumping into the low-profile servo market and jumping in with a beast of a new servo. This low-profile servo is a direct power setup, meaning that you power it directly from your battery rather than going to your receiver. And this will run on 3S or 4S. On 4S, this low-profile servo is almost 700 ounce inches. And if you're running 3S, it's still almost 530 ounce inches. So crazy numbers, especially from a low profile servo. Looks like these servos are 1 to 2 weeks out, but if you're looking for a crazy powerful low profile servo, these are ones that I definitely keep an eye out for. Pitbull posted a teaser of a new tire on their Facebook this week. This is a tire for the SCX24 crowd, or any vehicle running a 1-inch diameter wheel. These are the Pitbull PBX ATs. The video that they showed was just how sticky the two tires were, having to separate them from each other, but has a good looking all-terrain pattern, likely going to have a good rubber compound as well. These, no specific information or details as of yet, just that one simple video. So another option for the very popular 24 scale market at this time, but don't know the height, price, or time frame that these are going to come in yet. But once we see an official release, I'll update you all. Speaking of 24 scale, Furatech has a new brushed motor combo. Up to this point, they've mainly focused on brushless, but now they've got this IG Melon combo, which has one of their ESCs that is capable of running brushed or brushless, as well as their new Chameleon 80-turn brushed motor. This does come with a new carbon fiber motor plate, as well as pinion gear, so it's still a setup that's a little bit different from stock, likely more powerful than that stock motor. I've really enjoyed using their ESCs. This one does come with the Bluetooth module, super programmable from your phone. Really nice ownership experience with those products. So a brush motor option, it is a little bit cheaper than their brushless systems. These are currently listed as a pre-order. So if you want to get in line and try and get them as soon as possible, maybe put your pre-order in. Otherwise, keep an eye on their website for exactly when these become officially available. J Concepts released some new aluminum wheels this week. These are the 1.9 Hazard beadlocks. I can't remember if we've ever seen aluminum beadlocks from J Concepts before. These are only being sold through J Concepts. It doesn't look like these will find their way through their typical dealer network, but these are being sold in a set of 4, and the cost on these at this point, it says, is $200. I think that the normal retail price is going to be somewhere around $250, but it says right now, available only through them at around $200. These wheels have a unique style. I think it's kind of an older Toyota-ish look, if I'm correct. Can't remember exactly where I've seen that style before, but rings a bell from somewhere. And last week, Proline officially released a bunch of new parts, starting with a new Silverado body that's made to fit the longer wheelbase of the SCX-10.3 Gladiator version. That's at like 13.8-inch wheelbase. Really long compared to a standard one, but this is a Chevy Silverado quad cab, and the pickup bed also includes a little adventure rack or ladder rack, whatever you want to, overland rack, call it whatever name you want to call it. But this little rack setup is made from Lexan, so you're actually gonna have to trim this out and then paint it black. It's not a molded piece like comes on the Gladiator, so make sure you notice that in the photos. But it's nice that it's included. You bolt it together, it gives you that overlanding look on a bit of a budget. These bodies are never cheap, so it's not going to be a super budget, but definitely for including that, compared to the other options, not too bad. Check that out. Looks like that's available now for order. And then we get into those Mustang bodies we saw teased last week. We've got the No Prep one, short course size body. That's the 99 Mustang GT style body. Pretty good looking drag body. I'll give them that, even if that body style of Mustang is my second to least favorite. But I think they did a pretty good job on that body. Mustang fans of that era, I'm sure, are already rejoicing. And then the other Mustang body is technically from Protoform, I believe. I never got the whole Protoform Proline, what the difference was exactly. I don't know. But this is for that Arma Vendetta, which pretty good looking little platform. It's a 1/8 scale, not quite the huge scale of the 1/7 in infraction and felony, but still a pretty good looking car. And this Mustang body looks really good. I think they did a great job with this. This is the more current body style of Mustang and well proportioned for that on-road platform. And finally, Proline also released the Proline Hyrax pre-mounted on their Impulse beadlock wheels with a silver beadlock ring versus the black that we have seen previously on the Impulse wheels. But beyond that, these are the Predator compound mounted onto those wheels. Basically the only difference from any of the previous ones that you've seen. So, and if you're shopping on Proline, you can use the code Harley10 and it'll save you 10%. And I get a little bit of credit for it. Win-win. And then the Tesla Cybertruck RC version is back. Hot Wheels releasing that truck again. It is on Amazon right now. I think it's only like 99 bucks. So I've seen the price of the original release of those things go absolutely wild. I'm sure that the collectors or resellers of those cried when they re-released this version of them. I do think that there's been a few updates to the underpinnings maybe to make them maybe a little bit better. From what I heard, these were not the most top quality of RC vehicles, but if you missed out on the first round, get them again while they're in stock. Available now, linked in the description below, as well as the rest of the stories that we talked about today. But that does it for this week's news topics. Before we get to this week's question, one note about next week. The news may be a day late, just depending on travel time for me when I get back and how much time I have to get the video done. Worst case scenario, it'll be a day late. But for this week's question, kind of going back to the Cybertruck a little bit, it was available and then it went away and people all of a sudden wanted it. What was the pre-order or limited release vehicle that you wish you would have got the first time around? Put it in the comments below. I already feel like I can guess about 50% of these comments. But that's gonna do it for this week's Scale News Update. For those of you observing Thanksgiving, I hope you have an awesome time. For those of you who aren't observing it, I hope you still have a great week. As always, thanks for watching the Scale News Update every Tuesday, normally, hopefully next week. With that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.